Well, welcome everybody. This is Aaron Marshall along with Corey Miller. This is a new program airing here on your local radio network, Thoughtful Christianity. So Corey, welcome to the program and tell us what is Thoughtful Christianity? Who are we and why should anybody care about this radio program?
Hey, it's great to be here with you, Aaron, and with our new listeners and friends out there. Thoughtful Christianity is the vision of the national ministry Ratio Christi Campus Apologetics Alliance, and we're about transforming lives on campus today, changing culture tomorrow.
Okay, so that obviously a lot there. Transforming lives on campus today, changing culture tomorrow. We'll get into that today. But who are we? You mentioned Ratio Christi. What is Ratio Christi? How do you spell that? What does it stand for?
Yeah, Aaron, it's a Latin term that means the reason of Christ, and it's an apologetics evangelism campus ministry. So we equip students and professors with scientific reasons for following Jesus.
And so how did you get involved with Ratio Christi?
I've been on staff here as the president for about 6 years. After I was on campus with a campus ministry, Faculty Commons Campus Crusade, done my PhD in philosophy, found it to be very hostile, at least in certain quarters of the world. And I saw this opportunity. I was invited to consider coming on board, and I thought this was just a hand-in-glove opportunity to impact the culture by impacting the campus. Starts in the campus.
Right. And you've got ties, local ties here in Utah, right? So you're up at Purdue University now. It's where you were teaching, and now where the headquarters of Ratio Christi is. But you've got ties here in Utah, right?
Yeah, I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, as a seventh-generation Mormon. One of my ancestors was one of Joseph Smith's personal bodyguards, so I understand the culture there, and that's what sent me field of philosophy and comparative religions after I began questioning certain things about Mormonism and became a Christian in the biblical sense.
Right. And it's interesting. So I'm also a part of the organization of Ratio Christi, and we moved out here, my family and I, wife, 5 kids. So we blend in well within the Mormon community. But we moved out here in 2019 to help get Ratio Christi chapter started out here. And it was actually on a book tour. You had written a book with a couple other scholars talking about your journey out of Mormonism. That was the first time I came out here and just fell in love with the area. Obviously, I think God broke my heart for the Mormon people. And so we ended up moving out here. And so now we've got Ratio Christi chapters at Utah State, at Weber State, at the University of Utah. And we're hoping to get one started at UVU. And God's really been blessing the ministry out here. Our partnership here with Utah Partnership for Christ has been amazing. They're actually the ones that are allowing us to even do this radio broadcast. So God's really doing some cool things with the ministry of Ratio Christi out here in Utah, which I know is near and dear to your heart.
Absolutely. It's so good to be back in that state, even if I'm not there personally, but having our organization there. Ratio Christi is so unique. What separates us from a lot of the standard apologetics ministries is that we're on the campus. And what separates us from a lot of the standard campus ministries is that we do apologetics evangelism. We try to deal with tough questions, overcome obstacles so that we can get to the gospel of Jesus, who changes everything.
Right. So you're the president of Ratio Christi. Obviously, you're passionate about the ministry. So I as well. Why should let's take a few minutes to this podcast, this radio program is going to focus on really what's happening on the college campus. So there's a lot of apologetics ministries that are doing amazing things and doing radio shows where they're talking about, just typical apologetics arguments for God's existence, arguments for the reliability of Scripture, evidence of the resurrection. And obviously that is our lane, right? That's where we run in. Yeah. But we think this show can be a little bit different, and that what we want to focus on is how are, taking all of those ideas, important things, but then filtering them through. How does this affect what's happening on the college campus? How does the college campus, what's happening on the college campus, affect us, in the culture today? Because there could be people listening to this show that say, look, why do I care about what's happening on the college campus now? I'm graduated, I'm done with college. Yes, I recognize that it's they're more liberal, and yes, I know, I kind of know there's issues with the college campus, but why should I care about what's happening on the college campus? And why should I keep listening to this show if that's what you're going to focus on?
Right, right. Well, if we find that there is unhealth in a body, we don't want to just treat the symptoms. We want to find out what the cause is. We want to give the proper diagnosis and treat the cause. In our culture, if we've got pollution downstream, we want to go upstream and find out how to solve that problem. And in our culture, it invariably leads back up to the university. On the campus is where it's the gatekeeper of thought for culture. And it's where all of our journalists, our doctors, lawyers, political leaders, K through 12 educators, and future professors all come from. So it's strategic that we be on the campus. And so we want to address issues on the campus and look at see and how they relate to culture downstream.
All right, so let's just take, let's say, give me an example right now of something that is happening on the college campus that is having huge implications in culture. That someone maybe is listening who may not be familiar what's happening on the college campus. Personally, they're on campus right now. But what's one thing to kind of put some feet to this that someone can say, oh, okay, I see what's happening in culture, and I can see why that focusing on the college campus and the ideas that they're shaping this have been influenced by what's happening on the college campus. I mean, can you give us one or two?
Sure. Richard Weaver once said that ideas have consequences. And we can see this right now, wondering how it is that our culture has changed so radically in and rapidly in respect to, let's say, race issues. We've got this thing now called critical race theory. It's not just race theory, but it's built on the two pillars of race theory and Marxism. We sometimes will call it social justice, sometimes critical theory, sometimes neo-Marxism, sometimes identity politics. It's coming from the same stock. So whatever we're seeing happening in culture right now, this has already been happening in the universities. This stuff has been in certain departments especially, but throughout the university, and now it's almost running mad.
Mhm.
So that's where this is coming from.
So what would be why would it help somebody? Let's say someone recognizes, and obviously we've seen, this past year with the you talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're seeing what's happening in regards to sort of racial reconciliation issues that have really exploded across the country. And you're saying that there are certain philosophical positions driving those issues that have roots on the university, in the university, that maybe people don't understand all the implications of these ideas as they're filtering out into culture, right? Is that,
Yeah,
but if we
right.
understand what's happening at the university and where these ideas come from, that can better help us understand what's happening in the culture today.
That's right. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said that the philosophy in the classroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. Now, government is downstream from culture, but culture is downstream in at least one significant respect from the campus, from the university. That's where the ideas are generated. That's where they're coming from. Even in the 60s sexual revolution, that started with the ideas going on in the university and ended up bleeding out into culture.
So, all right, let's take one. Let's take that, and I think we could do multiple shows on this, and we probably will, like on this specific issue. But again, as we're just trying to help someone see who's maybe is listening for the first time, obviously because this is our first episode, but trying to think, if this is a show that will help them. Why would it benefit somebody to know kind of where those ideas? Let's just look at critical race theory. We see what's happening in the culture now. Why would it benefit somebody to know where those ideas came from, and then what was happening on the college campus, and how those ideas were formed? Why would that help them now to be able to interact with those ideas as they're now filtered out into culture?
Well, because if we want to solve the problem, if there's again pollution downstream, you've got to go upstream and find out where this is coming from. And this is not just one off example. This is consistent. When you find problems in culture, oftentimes you trace it back to the universities if it's rooted in ideas. And from a perspective in particular, we've got to find out which ideas are subversive to the Christian faith, which ones are sneaking in. Sometimes past the pastors, they get past the gatekeepers of the flock, and it's because this subtle philosophy that people don't often recognize. And this is, C.S. Lewis said, "Study philosophy if for no other reason than to counter bad philosophy." We're told in the pastoral epistles that we need to be ready to exhort in sound doctrine and refute those who contradict. We've got to be we've got to beware of false philosophy, but that means we have to be aware of what it is.
Right. Well, some as a Christian, what if my thinking could be? Well, the university is, has basically gone. We could say liberal, but it just has abandoned, any idea of even being able to proclaim the gospel on campus. So shouldn't we just abandon the campus? And we've started Christian colleges and Christian schools, and we're homeschooling now. But is the campus is it too far gone? Have we lost the campus where we should just think, hey, let's move on to something else?
Unless there's a better strategy to control the ideas of the culture. But right now, and for the last few centuries, this is the central point of the ideas that get spread into culture. Maybe the university is going to go. Maybe technology is going to make it go. Maybe the high cost of tuition or some financial collapse is going to make that happen. But in the meantime, no, this is where not just secular, non-Christian parents send but this is where Christian parents send their kids. And so, the secularists have found a brilliant way to get Christian parents to pay for the apostasy of their own children, called the university. If we're not there defending, if we're not there equipping people, not just to survive, but we want them to thrive,
Right.
then we're just giving up our next generation.
Yeah, I remember Simon Brace, who is one of our Russia Christi directors
Yeah.
down in Africa, in South Africa. He used to do a talk where basically he would say that we're sending our kids off as lambs to the wolves in order to be slaughtered when metaphorically, obviously, but when they go
Yeah.
off to college, because the statistics show that upwards of 75% of Christianized kids will walk away from the faith when they go off to college, and the number one reason they give is intellectual doubt. And so a ministry like Ratio Christi, we're not just telling them to quote unquote have faith and stick their head in the sand. We're saying that if Christianity is true, it's true for all people, at all times, at all places. We can look at the evidence. All the evidence is actually going to point to the Christian worldview. But now we're actually equipping them to think better about the most important things in life, so that when issues like you mentioned critical race theory, when they're being exposed to it, they're actually able to analyze those ideas,
Right.
see the good, right, but also see the bad and the potential problems with that view, and then hopefully help to change the culture on campus, so that we can actually continue to have dialogues, that we don't let bad ideas flourish on campus and then ultimately into culture.
Right. We've got to capture every thought and make it obedient to Christ, as Paul says in the book of Corinthians. Um, this issue of people falling away to the faith, from the faith on the campuses. It's not just that they get defeated or might fall away, depending on one's view of eternal security, but many of them get conscripted to fight for the other side. Some of the
Right.
most hostile people against the faith today that are anti-religious got captured at the universities. Some of them had pastors as fathers. So we need to be able to step in and defend the faith, but it also the cause of Christ. And sometimes even that's getting cut. So we're facing, legal issue after legal issue after legal issue of free speech, because the other side realizes that it's all about the ideas. Whoever controls the classroom controls the future of the country.
And obviously the university is supposed to be this place where we can hash out ideas, the old adage, love people, challenge ideas. That's what we should be able to do in the university. But more and more, we could talk about critical race theory in future episodes, and other philosophies that are curtailing speech, as you said. Maybe what's one or two examples of issues that Ratio Christi is battling on the college campus now, that we think have implications, for culture? We mentioned critical race theory, but maybe like a specific issue that Ratio Christi chapters are dealing with.
Yeah. Oh, you had mentioned something about, loving people We had the old adage, love the sinner, hate the sin.
Right.
That used to work, but because of, again, another subtle philosophy, postmodernism, you can't separate in the mind of a postmodern thinker, which a lot of the millennials are and Gen Z, you can't separate the idea from the person. If I don't like the idea, that means I don't like the person. So we're told to hate or celebrate. And if you don't celebrate, then you must hate. And if you're a hater, that's a bad thing. Now there's this hate speech, and they want to, uh, make hate speech about things like standard Christian doctrine,
Right.
traditional marriage. We can't get on certain campuses if we hold um, a millennia old view about natural sexual relations. And so some of our campuses aren't allowed on campus because of that. Some of them get kicked off campus, and we have to go legal over that stuff. We have to do as Paul did and appeal to Caesar just to have the freedom not only to speak, but it presupposes free thought, cognitive liberty. If I even so much as think the wrong thing, I'm in trouble these days.
So you mentioned legal battles. So has Ratio Christi been in? You mentioned it, but have we been involved with legal battles with the university as Ratio Christi chapters?
Yeah, since my time here, we've had about 75 inquiries. We've had about 30 cases of legal proceedings, two federal victories, and now we've got an amicus brief in one case at the Supreme Court, waiting to hear the results on that one, which will have ramifications for the country. And then another, we're getting ready to enter into, preparing for it to be intervening defendants in a case with the executive branch.
Yeah, and I was a lawyer in my past life. They always say that a lawyer and a Christian is an oxymoron. So I gotten all those jokes before, but obviously I have a passion for seeing really just the ability to have these discussions on campus. So the First Amendment, and we're seeing that those that right, the right guaranteed us right by the Constitution, certainly
Yeah.
the Bill of Rights, that's being attacked on college campus. What's one example of where Ratio Christi has had to fight university on the one of these either free speech issue or something like that, and then I guess also, why do you think it's important that we're willing to litigate? Because there's a lot of campus ministries
Yeah,
that aren't. And I
that's
think we
right.
take a very principled stand that, not that we're trying to, we're not running to the courthouse in every step, but that when an opportunity comes, we must litigate.
Right. And it's not like we're fighting for prayer in schools here. This is for the right to exist.
Right.
It's not just free speech, but cognitive liberty now. So, for example, we were kicked off early on from the Cal State University system, 400,000 students affected, simply because we insisted that our leaders, not our members, but our leaders, actually be Christians who agree with our doctrinal statement. And that wasn't good enough because some of it may constitute hate speech. Happened also in Colorado. We didn't get on for almost 3 years. And finally, we litigated with that one and they backed down. But some universities are so bad, they come back for seconds. One in Iowa is coming back for thirds. The last case was so egregious, the judge made the administrators pay the fees out of their own pockets. Speech zones, you can't speak in areas, so you have to litigate for that. We won a federal victory in Georgia over that. And now we're in a Supreme Court case that concerns another university in Georgia in the same state happened. So you just don't have enough attorneys to go around with 5,000 universities. It's a political orthodoxy at these places, and they think they can get away with it. But the law of the land, Aaron, is the U.S. Constitution. It is not the university. And your question about why we ought to do this and why so many don't, yeah, we have a theology of litigation. If people are asking what would Jesus do, that's good so far as it goes. But if that were the case and we asked that for everything, we wouldn't even have children. And I know you and I are both fathers because that
Right.
requires sexual intercourse. And well, the Mormon Jesus, this is Utah. It's a different case there, but in many cases, most cases in Christianity, they see Jesus's mission was different, to be the Messiah, for example. We say, what would Paul do in this case? He would litigate. He would appeal to Caesar. His Roman citizenship was important. Our American citizenship is important. It's not like we're replacing that with the gospel. We want the platform to be able to speak the gospel and have what everybody else has. We founded this country,
Right.
likely,
Right.
largely.
Yeah. We just actually taught at our Ratio Christi meeting. I taught at our Ratio Christi meeting on Monday, taught through the book, The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt
Yeah.
and Greg Lukianoff. It's interesting, maybe you could speak about this, that sort of the strange bedfellows in some sense that are now joining forces because Haidt and Lukianoff, liberal, atheist, probably disagree with us on every social issue, but they want to fight for our right to be able to make the case for Christianity in the marketplace of ideas. Lukianoff, for instance, works with an organization called FIRE, which is a First Amendment law firm, and they litigate at the university, and I think they handle like 80 to 90% of their defendants are Christian Christian
Hmm.
organizations on universities, and they disagree with them, but they want them to be able to fight for the right to do that. I know you have some interaction with liberal atheist professor Peter Boghossian, who and hopefully y'all will be able to do. I know you've done a tour here in Utah, but potentially even some other things that are coming from that. So it is interesting that we're seeing from different sides and different
Yeah.
parts are starting to see, if we don't change the culture on campus today, we are going to lose the culture tomorrow.
Right. And Dr. Haidt is the head of a organization called Heterodox Academy. I became a member when I was teaching at Indiana University. I'm no longer teaching there, but I hold my membership still. And in Heterodox Academy, it's about viewpoint diversity. And that's what the
Right.
atheist philosopher and I, Peter Boghossian, did with you there too in Utah. We were talking on campuses about viewpoint diversity, the death of intellectual diversity in the universities, because it's such a political monolith, a political orthodox kind of a place. Jonathan Haidt looks at himself now as a moderate, and yet he would claim to be a leftist, atheist, Jew, interestingly. But because culture has shifted so rapidly and radically just over the last 5 years in the universities, he now considers himself a moderate. The goalposts have shifted. His ideas didn't, but the goalposts have, and he's now looked at as almost conservative or moderate compared to how radical it's become.
Right. Well, we're wrapping up, and I think just the idea again, what we want to do with this show is just show how culture on campus, ideas on campus, are going to infiltrate the camp. The culture today. Ideas on campus today infiltrate the culture tomorrow, and we're seeing now with speech laws and stuff. In culture, all of them have their roots on the campus. Maybe one thing we'd like to do at the end of each episode would just deep thoughts with Corey Miller. Maybe just based on what we've talked about today, what would be one thing that you would want to leave the audience with in regards to the topics and stuff that we've talked about on this first episode?
As go the universities, so goes the culture. And as go the US universities, at least right now, so goes the world.
Yeah, yeah. So someone who's interested in Ratio Christi, maybe they never heard of us before, how can they find out more about us? How can they get involved with what we're doing and across the world, not just the United States?
Yeah, you can go to ratiochristi.org, RATIO, like mathematical ratio, Christ with an I, CHRISTI.org. Ratiochristi.org. Check out our website. If you want to give us feedback on this program, or if you want to suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at info@ratiochristi.org and just put thoughtful Christianity in the subject line.
Yeah, and if you're interested in want to help start Ratio Christi chapters across the country, let us know. I do all the hiring for us nationally, so I'd love to talk to you. And we'd love to get more chapters here in Utah, but we want to be on every college campus in the world. Well, thanks, Corey. This was great. I'm excited for what we have in the future. We're going to talk about lots of really important things in regards to the campus, in regards to apologetics, and so I'm excited for this podcast, this TV show, this radio program, and what God can do through the program. So thanks for you taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of it.
You as well. Looking forward to it. Everyone spread the word. We're coming back.
Yeah. So, thank you. This program has been funded by way of a gift from Utah Partnerships for Christ. So we just want to thank them and really just the blessings that they've been to us out here in Utah. So until next time, everybody, this is Aaron Marshall and Corey Miller signing off.